Morning, everyone, and again, thank you for inviting me here this morning to talk about something near and dear to everybody's business plan over the next couple of years and has been in the past, what you do going forward with your relationships with your vendors. And my talk is going to be a little bit about the evolution of servicing and partnerships from the iGate and iTops perspective. And if you notice, even in the topic, I don't mention the word outsourcing at all because we believe at iGate that the natural progression is away from the word outsourcing, but more to a servicing and partner kind of relationship. And that is the evolution of what we think the model is going to. I'll talk a little bit about where we came from in the outsourcing journey. We'll talk a little bit about iTops, which is the proprietary iGate solution. And we'll take you through where what might be the most prominent reasons to outsource in today's environment and in the environment in the future. One thing I'd like to mention at the start, though, it was very interesting for me to sit through the panel discussion just a few minutes ago and about Jim and John talking about how important a partnership was to them in their relationship. This is something that, again, we believe is paramount to success going forward. And at least with iGate, we believe that partnership is part of our DNA, thus the DNA background that you see floating around here. I thought what better way to describe it than to give you a graphic on it. And it's funny, speaking of graphics, when I was putting this presentation together, my original title for the topic was the iTops, the Evolved Outsourcing Model. And I stepped back and looked at it, and I thought, well, that's really not right anymore, and maybe we should talk about the servicing and partnership with a little graphic, which, like the musician Prince, could be called, servicing and partnership, formerly known as outsourcing, that kind of thing. So, but this is our viewpoint from iTops to iGate, and I'm certain if we polled some of our colleagues in the audience here today, that they'd have a little bit a different viewpoint on what the evolution of this outsourcing is also. So let's begin our journey here a little bit. How did we get here? Well, everybody knows that exchange of services is a very old function. It's as old as mankind. Fairly compensating somebody for doing something is just basic employment. But when you step outside of your group and ask somebody to do something for you, it becomes outsourcing at that point. It could be a family, tribe, or whatever. But when you delegate something to an outsider, traditionally that's what we've called outsourcing. And during the ancient times, a lot of the cultures used to do this with references to how can they help themselves with their farming and their agriculture. The ancient Egyptians had an arrangement with some of the neighboring tribes to help them build irrigation canals so that they could assist them in construction of their farms to be able to get water to it, and they exchanged their harvests for that. A little bit later on and across the globe, the ancient Chinese had a need for jewelry, but they didn't have the resources for the jewelry, so they actually went out and found neighboring tribes, and again, different countries that were good at sourcing and carving and creating jewelry out of silver and gold, and again exchanging services for that as food for the jewelry. One more example is the ancient mariners contracted with the Dutch to help move merchant material around the globe since they were so good at that. So outsourcing is really not new, but the way it's going in the future is going to be very new for everybody. I did some research into the background of outsourcing, and you'd be surprised to find that there is a timeline that exists on the internet. Of course, you can find anything on the internet anymore, of pertinent points to the lifespan of outsourcing across. Some of the highlighted things that I thought were very interesting that I'd like to bring out, though, in 1776, Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations really started talking about the competitive advantage theories and about how you should use outsourcing to hire cheap labor in less developed countries. Very interesting. Way back then, they were thinking about doing that. The next thing in the 1830s I thought was very interesting was the fact that the Indians couldn't compete in manufacturing, so they outsourced their services to England. Pretty interesting, I thought. Wow, what a turnaround that has become. We jump to the 1960s when we start talking about technology, and then we move into the 80s where outsourcing is an official business term.